The oversized SUV sat idling in my driveway, a beast of polished black metal puffing steam into the crisp November air. My son, Daniel, was strapping the last of their designer skis to the roof rack, his movements quick and efficient. "You're absolutely sure you won't come, Mom?" he called out, not turning around. "The lodge has that new heated pool you'd like." "I'm perfectly happy right here," I said, pulling my cardigan tighter. "Besides, someone has to watch the house. Go, have fun. Juliana, don't let him break a leg." My daughter-in-law, Juliana, emerged from the passenger seat. She glided over, all cashmere and perfume, and gave me a brittle air kiss that landed somewhere near my ear. "We do worry, Flora. It's such a big house for you to be in all alone." "It's the same house I've been in for 30 years, dear," I said, my smile just as brittle. "I think I can manage for one more week." "We'll call from the road," Daniel said, finally slamming the driver's door. He gave me a quick obligatory wave through the tinted glass, and then they were gone. I watched the SUV turn the corner, the rumble of its engine fading until the silence of the streets settled back in. I took a deep, full breath. The peace was immediate and total, like a heavy blanket being lifted. At 67, I had earned this quiet. At my age, I preferred the comfort of my own routine, my own space. I could drink my coffee from the chipped mug Daniel hated and watch the news without Juliana's pointed comments about the anchors' outfits. I went inside and immediately called the cleaning service. "Hello, Miranda? Flora Paxton? Yes, they've just left. The house is all yours." Miranda Greaves arrived an hour later, her worn-out van rattling to a stop behind my sedan. She was a small, wiry woman in her 40s with kind eyes and hands that looked like they'd never been idle. "Mrs. Paxton, good to see you," she said, hauling a heavy-duty vacuum and a caddy of supplies. "Same plan as last time? Deep clean, top to bottom?" "Exactly, Miranda. Start upstairs, work your way down. The place is a tomb right now, so take your time. I'll be in the garden if you need anything at all." "You got it," she said with a warm smile. I retreated to my sanctuary. The late autumn sun was weak, but the air was perfect for pulling weeds and turning the soil in my dormant vegetable beds. I lost myself in the rhythm of the work, my hands in the dirt, my mind blessedly empty. For 2 hours, the only sounds were the snip of my shears and the distant hum of Miranda's vacuum. It was perfect. Then my phone, sitting on the stone bench, began to vibrate, its buzzing a violent intrusion. I wiped the soil from my hands and picked it up. It was Miranda. "Miranda, is something wrong? Did you break a—" "Mrs. Paxton," she whispered, her voice tight with a terror I could hear. "Please, please, you have to come inside. Right now. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you." My blood ran cold. "Miranda, what is it? What's wrong?" I was already on my feet, my gardening gloves dropping to the path. "Ma'am, is anyone else supposed to be in your house?" She practically sobbed into the phone. "No, of course not," I said, stumbling toward the back door. "It's just us. What did you see?" "No, there's a woman. Upstairs." Her voice cracked. "She's in the attic. I saw her." I stopped, my hand on the doorknob. The house, my quiet sanctuary, suddenly looked menacing, its windows like dark, watching eyes. "That's impossible, Miranda. The attic door is locked. It's just full of old boxes." "I was cleaning the upstairs bathroom," she rushed on, her breathing heavy and fast. "The one near the attic stairs. I heard footsteps right above my head, like someone pacing. It's an old house, Miranda. I thought it was the house too. I thought it was just settling, but it was walking. I called out. I thought maybe you'd come back inside, and it stopped. Dead quiet." I was fumbling with my keys, my fingers suddenly thick and useless. "Did you open the door? Did you look?" "Yes, I'm so stupid. I took the key from the hook and I opened the attic door just a crack, to check, to make sure it wasn't a raccoon or something." Her voice dropped to a terrified whisper. "She was sitting there. Mrs. Paxton, she was just sitting in a chair watching the door, like she was waiting for me. The world tilted. I grabbed the door frame to steady myself. Are you sure? Did she say anything? She told me not to scream. She said, "Don't be afraid. I live here." "Miranda," I said, my voice trembling, "get out of the house. Right now. Walk to the stairs, go out the front door, and get in your van." "I'm scared to move," she whispered. "What if she follows me?" Mrs. Paxton, she knew my name. She said, "Miranda, right? The cleaning lady. Flora will be so upset you found me." Terror, cold and sharp, shot through me. "I'm calling the police. Get out. Go now." I disconnected and my fingers shook so badly I could barely dial 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "There's an intruder in my house," I gasped, my voice sounding foreign and high. "My cleaning lady, she found someone, a woman, living in my attic." "Ma'am, are you safe?" The operator's calm voice was a stark contrast to the chaos in my head. "Yes, I'm outside, but my cleaning lady, Miranda, she's still in there." "We're dispatching units to 4 and 12 Willow Creek Drive immediately. Stay on the line. Can you see your cleaning lady?" I watched the front door, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The door flew open. Miranda didn't walk. She sprinted, her canvas bag abandoned, her keys clutched in her hand. She didn't stop until she had wrenched her van door open and practically fallen inside. She locked the door and looked at me through the glass, her face pale, her hands shaking. I stayed on the line with the 911 operator, watching every upstairs window, every shadow that seemed to move. How long had she been there? How had she gotten in? Had she been walking above my head while I slept? The wait for the police was the longest 10 minutes of my life. Miranda and I stood by her van, a silent, terrified vigil. Every creak from the house made me jump. 2 patrol cars, lights flashing but sirens off, glided to the curb. 2 officers, a man and a woman, got out. They looked impossibly young. "Mrs. Flora Paxton?" the man, Officer Ramirez, asked. "Yes, that's me. She's in there, in the attic." "My cleaning lady, Miranda, she saw her." Officer Ramirez looked at Miranda, who was still visibly shaking. "Ma'am, can you tell us exactly what you saw?" Miranda repeated her story, her voice quiet but firm. "She was sitting in a chair, an old wooden chair. She looked sick, but her eyes, she looked right at me, and she knew my name." "All right," Ramirez said, his expression grim. He turned to his partner. "Officer Evans, you cover the back. We go in through the front. Ma'am," he said to me, "I need you to stay here. Do not approach the house. Do you have any idea who this person might be?" "No," I whispered. "I live alone. My son and his wife are out of town." They unholstered their weapons and disappeared inside my house. The front door clicked shut, leaving us in the terrible, silent street. 20 minutes passed. It felt like 20 years. I paced the sidewalk. Miranda sat on the curb, her head in her hands. Finally, the front door opened. Officer Ramirez emerged, his hand on his radio. "We found someone. Adult female, appears to be in her 50s. She's compliant. Not a threat. We're bringing her out now." My breath caught in my throat. I grabbed Miranda's arm. Officer Evans came out first, walking backward, and then, flanked by the officer, the woman emerged. She was thin, her frame bird-like, swimming in clothes that were filthy and matted. Her graying hair was a tangled mess. She looked like a ghost, a hollowed-out version of a person. But as they guided her down the steps and into the weak autumn sunlight, she looked up. Her eyes, sunken in their sockets, scanned the yard and found me. Recognition hit me like a physical blow. The air rushed from my lungs. "No," I whispered. "It can't be." The woman who was supposed to be dead, the woman I had mourned and buried 15 years ago, smiled at me. It was a small, broken smile, but it was hers, and she waved. A casual little wave, as if we'd just run into each other at the grocery store. Helen, I breathed. The name felt like ash in my mouth. Officer Ramirez looked from my face to hers, his confusion obvious. Ma'am, you know this person. She was my sister-in-law, I stammered, my mind struggling to connect the dots. Harriet Milner, my husband's brother's wife. But she's dead, I said, louder this time, as if saying it would make it true. She died 15 years ago. I went to her funeral. We buried her. Harriet let out a dry, rattling laugh. Not quite dead, Flora, just deeply inconvenient. The casual way she said it, the simple flat statement, made my skin crawl. How? How do you let your family grieve? How do you let your children, my niece and nephew, visit a gravestone? Harriet, what in God's name is going on? I stepped forward, ignoring Ramirez's hand on my arm. We buried you. Tom buried you. Your children, Mason, and... They think you're dead. For a fleeting second, her expression cracked. I saw a flicker of the woman I'd once known, the woman who brought her prize-winning apple pie to Thanksgiving and always remembered my birthday. But the woman standing before me was a stranger, gaunt, hollow-cheeked, with a wildness in her eyes that scared me. I had to, she whispered. You don't understand. Ma'am, we need to sort this out at the station, Officer Ramirez said, pulling out his notepad. There are clearly some serious legal issues here. Identity fraud, for a start, not to mention trespassing. You faked your own death, I said, the words tasting like poison. It was easier than you'd think, Harriet said, her voice matter-of-fact. A car accident on a dark road, a fire, an unidentifiable body. But the dental records, I said, remembering the agonizing confirmation. Harriet shrugged. Debts, big ones. The kind that don't go away. Gambling, loan sharks. They were going to take the house. They were threatening Tom, threatening the kids. It's amazing what people will do for you, or what records they'll misplace, when you owe them enough money, or when they owe you a favor. The coldness, the clinical detachment was terrifying. This wasn't the Harriet I knew. Your children, Harriet, I insisted, my voice breaking. Mason, they mourned you. They still put flowers on your grave every year. Her composure finally broke. Her lower lip trembled and she looked away, her eyes finding a crack in the sidewalk. I know, I've watched them sometimes, from a distance. Mrs. Milner, you need to come with us, Officer Ramirez said, his voice firm. There are a lot of people who are going to need answers. How long? I asked, a new, terrible thought dawning. How long have you been in my house? Harriet looked at me, her eyes empty. 3 months, since July. 3 months. I thought of the noises in the night I dismissed as the house settling, the food that seemed to disappear faster than I ate it, the persistent, nagging feeling of being watched. How did you even get in? Harriet's eyes met mine, and in them I saw something that wasn't madness. It was something worse. It was pity. You should ask your son, she said, her voice soft. The world narrowed to a single, pulsing point. What did you say? Daniel, she said, as if speaking to a child. Your son, Daniel. He gave me the key. He's been helping me, Flora, bringing me food, making sure I had blankets. He's a good boy. Always was. The words hit me like a physical blow. I think I stumbled. I felt Miranda's hand on my back, steadying me. Mrs. Paxton, is this true? Officer Ramirez asked, his pen poised over his notepad. Has your son been in contact with this woman? I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, a mute, desperate denial. My own son, my Daniel. He knew. He had known, and he had let this ghost live above my head. The betrayal was a physical pain, a cold, sharp blade twisting in my gut. He didn't want me to stay here at first, Harriet continued, oblivious to my shock. He was worried you'd find me, But I convinced him it was temporary, just until I could figure out my next move. He felt sorry for me. You know, family loyalty. Family loyalty? I found my voice, but it came out as a harsh, rasping whisper. You abandoned your family. You let your children believe you were dead for 15 years. That's not loyalty. That's monstrous. You don't understand the pressure, she snapped, the first real emotion I'd seen from her. The threats. They were going to kill me, Flora. Kill my kids. Tom and Mason were better off thinking I was dead than knowing what I'd done. Mrs. Patterson, Miranda spoke up, her voice trembling. When I was cleaning, I was in your son's old room. I found empty food containers. Under the bed, wrappers, bottles of water. I thought he was just messy when he visited, but it was a lot. The pieces slammed into place with sickening clarity. Daniel's insistence that I join them on this ski trip, his constant nagging concern about me being alone in the big house. He wasn't worried about my safety. He was worried about Harriet being discovered. How often? I asked Harriet, my voice dead. How often does he come? Every few days, usually at night when you're sleeping, or when you're at your garden club. He brings groceries, medicine when my cough gets bad. He even set up a little camping stove for me up there, a battery-powered radio. He's been very thoughtful. Thoughtful. My son had been thoughtful. He had set up a cozy little nest for a fugitive in my attic while lying to my face. Mrs. Patterson, Officer Ramirez said, closing his notepad, we're taking Mrs. Milner in. This is a very complex situation. We're talking identity fraud, which is federal, Social Security fraud, and that's before we get to the trespassing and the conspiracy. This is much bigger than we thought. They led Harriet to the patrol car. She didn't resist. She looked relieved. As they opened the door, she turned back to me one last time, her face a mask of strange, twisted sincerity. Flora, you have to understand. I never meant to hurt you. Daniel, he said you'd been so lonely since your husband passed. He said having someone else in the house might actually be good for you, even if you didn't know it. The casual cruelty of it, the absolute breathtaking arrogance left me speechless. My grief, my loneliness, they weren't problems to be solved. They were weapons to be used against me. I watched the police car pull away, Harriet's pale face a ghostly blur in the back window until it disappeared around the corner. Miranda stayed with me. She made me a cup of strong, sweet tea, her hands shaking almost as much as mine. Mrs. Paxton, I'm so sorry, she said, her voice soft. Are you going to be okay here tonight? Alone? I nodded, though I wasn't sure I'd ever feel safe in this house again. The violation was absolute. It wasn't just a stranger, it was a ghost, and my own son had been her gatekeeper. I'll be fine, Miranda. Thank you. You were so brave. I was terrified, she admitted with a weak laugh. Will you call when you talk to your son? I need to know what happens. I'll call, I promised. After she left, the silence of the house returned, but it was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, oppressive. Every creak, every groan of the old wood was a question. I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen, the mug of tea long gone cold, and stared at the phone. The next morning, at 9:30 on the dot, my phone rang. Daniel. His cheerful, smiling face from a vacation 5 years ago popped up on the screen. My stomach dropped. I let it ring 4 times, then picked it up. Hi, Mom. His voice was bright, cheerful, laced with the artificial energy of someone on vacation. How's everything at home? Hope you're not getting too lonely without us. The casual, patronizing concern made me want to scream. We need to talk, Daniel. The cheer in his voice vanished. Sure, what's up? You sound upset. Harriet Milner is alive. I let the words hang in the air, a grenade with the pin pulled. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. It stretched for 5 seconds, 10. I heard him take a sharp, sudden breath. "Mom," he said, his voice a low, careful monotone. "What are you talking about? Aunt Harriet died." "Don't lie. To me," I spat. "The police arrested her yesterday, Daniel. She was living in the attic, my attic, and she told them everything. She told them you've been helping her, that you gave her the key." Another silence. This one was heavier, defeated. A long, slow sigh. "How did you find out?" The admission hit me like a slap. "So it's true." My voice broke. "It's all true. You've been lying to me for months. You let that woman live in my house." "Mom, it's not what you think. Just let me explain, please." "Explain what?" I was on my feet now, pacing the kitchen floor. "Explain that you let a fugitive who faked her own death live in my home, that you've been sneaking around behind my back, bringing her food, lying to my face every single day. She needed help." His voice turned defensive, that sharp adolescent tone I hadn't heard in 30 years. "Mom, she was desperate. She had nowhere else to go." "She had nowhere to go because she chose to disappear," I shouted. "She let her children, your cousins, think she was dead. How could you be a part of that?" "You don't understand the whole situation," he said, his voice growing harder. "She was in real danger, and frankly, I've been worried about you." The change of subject was so abrupt it felt like whiplash. "Worried about me? What does that have to do with Harriet?" "Everything," he snapped. "Mom, Jessica, and we've been worried about you for a long time. You're 67 years old. You're living alone in a 4-bedroom house that's falling apart. You're getting older. I'm aware of my age, Daniel." "But are you aware of the limitations?" he said, and the patronizing tone was back, thicker than ever. "We've talked about this. We've talked about maybe finding you somewhere more suitable, a nice retirement community, assisted living, somewhere with people your own age, activities, medical care right there." The words felt like ice water in my veins. "You want to put me in a home. We want you to be safe," he yelled. And having Harriet there, well, it was actually kind of perfect. She could keep an eye on you. Make sure you were taking your medications, eating properly. She's had some medical training, you know." I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. You used her as a spy. You put a spy in my house." "I used her as help," he corrected, his voice indignant. "There's a difference. Help I didn't ask for, help I didn't consent to, help that involved lying to me, violating my privacy, and Mom, you're being dramatic. Helen needed a place to stay. You needed someone to look after you. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement." "Beneficial for whom, Daniel?" My voice was shaking with a rage so cold it burned. "For Harriet, who got to hide from federal charges. For you, who got to feel like you were managing my life from afar. Or for me, the old woman who was being watched in her own home." "You're making this sound so much more sinister than it was," he sighed, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "A woman who is legally dead was living in my attic and reporting on my daily activities to my son. How is that not sinister?" I heard Juliana's voice in the background, sharp and insistent. "David, just hang up, she's hysterical." He covered the phone, but I heard his muffled, "I'm handling it." He came back on the line. "Look, Mom, we'll talk about this when we get home. We'll be back tomorrow. But you need to understand everything we did, everything I did, was out of love and concern for you. When were you planning to tell me?" The pause was short. "We weren't," he said simply. "She was supposed to stay hidden until we could make other arrangements." "Other arrangements for her? Or for me?" Another pause. "Both. Probably." The honesty of that, the cold, simple calculation was worse than all the lies. "David," I said, my voice suddenly very calm, "I want you to think very carefully about what you just admitted. You conspired with a fugitive to spy on me in my own home as part of a plan to convince me I'm too incompetent to live my own life. Mom, you're twisting this. That's not, isn't it? Then explain it to me. Explain how I'm supposed to see it. She needed help. And frankly, Mom, so do you. We thought we could solve two problems at once. The callousness stole my breath. I was a problem to be solved. I have to go, he said, his voice clipped. The weather's turning. We're packing up. We'll be home tomorrow evening, and we can discuss this like adults. Adults, I repeated, don't spy on their parents. And adults don't refuse to face reality about their limitations, he shot back. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My son didn't just see me as someone who needed help. He saw me as someone whose judgment was faulty, whose autonomy was a negotiation, and he was coming home tomorrow. A cold fury propelled me up the stairs. I had avoided the second floor since the police left, but now I had to see it. I had to know. I grabbed the old brass key from the hook, the same key Miranda had used. My hand was shaking so hard it took 3 tries to get it into the lock of the attic door. The door swung open with a long, low groan, releasing a puff of stale, musty air. I flipped the light switch. A single bare bulb flickered on, illuminating the space. It was larger than I'd remembered, running the full length of the house. In the corner, under the slope of the roof, she had made her home. It was a nest. A filthy sleeping bag was spread out on an old, stained mattress I didn't even remember owning. Empty food containers, instant soup, cracker boxes, plastic water jugs were stacked neatly in a crate. Just as Harriet had said, a small single-burner camping stove sat on a piece of plywood, a blackened pot beside it. It was the folding table that drew my eye. A small battery-powered lantern sat on it, next to a stack of paperback books and a notebook, a simple black spiral-bound notebook. I walked over, my feet loud on the dusty floorboards. I picked it up, and my world, which I thought had already been shattered, broke into 1,000 more pieces. I opened the notebook. The first page was dated 3 months ago, July 14th. The handwriting was neat, precise. Harriet's. July 14th. Arrived. Dee helped move things in after F was asleep. She sleeps soundly. Good. July 17th. F left stove on after making tea. Didn't notice for 20 minutes. I smelled the gas from the vent. Had to wait until she left for the store to go down and turn it off. D notified. I froze. I didn't remember doing that. Had I? I flipped the page. July 22nd. F seemed confused about the day of the week. Asked the mailman what day it was. Seemed disoriented. D notified. I remembered that. I'd been gardening all weekend and lost track. It was a joke. I'd said, "Thank God it's Monday, right?" And he'd laughed and said, "It's Tuesday, Mrs. P." It wasn't confusion. It was conversation. I kept reading, my hands shaking. August 3rd, F forgot to take evening medication. Saw the pill bottle still full on the counter at 10 p.m. D notified. August 10th, F misplaced her car keys, spent 45 minutes searching, found them in the refrigerator. D notified. August 21st. F had a dizzy spell in the garden, sat on the bench for over an hour holding her head. D notified. Page after page, a meticulous daily log of my failures, my cognitive decline. But it was all lies, twists, fabrications. Yes, I'd left the stove on for 2 minutes and I'd caught it myself. Yes, I'd misplaced my keys and found them in my coat pocket. The dizzy spell was me sitting on the bench to enjoy the sunset. But someone reading this ledger of lies would see a clear, terrifying pattern. They would see a woman who was losing her mind, a woman who was a danger to herself. At the back of the notebook, I found something that made my heart stop. It wasn't a log entry. It was a plan. Tucked into a flap at the back of the notebook was a pristine, folded business card. Dr. Penelope Harding, MD, geriatric psychiatrist, cognitive and capacity assessments. Beneath the card in Harriet's neat script, initial consultation scheduled, Aus 15th, October 15th, that was next week. A second set of folded papers was tucked behind the card. I pulled them out. They were printed from a computer. The heading was stark. Petition for guardianship. My eyes scanned the legal S, my heart pounding a sick rhythm against my ribs. On the grounds that Flora Paxton is no longer mentally competent to manage her own affairs, due to rapidly advancing cognitive decline, presents a clear and present danger to her own health and safety. It cited extensive documentation of my decline. It referenced a forthcoming evaluation by Dr. Harding. It requested in cold legal type that I, Flora Paxton, be declared a ward of the state and that legal guardianship be granted to her son, Daniel Paxton. The petition was already drafted. It was just waiting for Dr. Harding's evaluation. An evaluation that would be based on the book of lies I was holding in my hand. This wasn't just concern. This wasn't just a misguided attempt to help. This was a conspiracy, a detailed, systematic, and utterly cold-blooded plot to strip me of my home, my rights, my money, and my life. My own son had scheduled a psychiatric evaluation for me based on fabricated evidence provided by a woman he was hiding from the police, all to have me declared incompetent. I dropped the notebook as if it were on fire. I stumbled back, gasping for air. The attic felt like a tomb. I ran. I scrambled down the narrow stairs, slammed the attic door, and fumbled with the key to lock it. I ran to my bedroom, my sanctuary, which now felt tainted, watched. I grabbed my phone and called the only person I knew I could trust. "Margaret Walsh, attorney at law," her secretary's voice said. "It's Flora Paxton. I need to speak to Melanie. It's an emergency." Melanie Weston had been my lawyer and my friend since my husband died. She was my age, sharp as a tack, and took no prisoners. "Flora," she said, coming on the line instantly, "what's wrong? You sound terrible." The story tumbled out of me. The cleaning lady, the attic, Harriet, the fake death. Daniel's phone call, the notebook, the guardianship petition. Melanie listened without interruption, her silence more profound than any gasp. "Flora," she said, her voice hard and cold, "this is not a family squabble. This is a 5-alarm fire. This is a criminal conspiracy. What do I do? He's coming home tomorrow." "He's not your son right now, Flora. He is your legal adversary. Do you understand me? What they've done, this is a documented, premeditated attempt to defraud you and commit elder abuse. They're building a case to have you declared incompetent. Can they do that? Based on lies?" "Unfortunately, yes," Melanie said, and I heard her typing furiously. "Guardianship proceedings are supposed to protect people, but they can be abused. A judge sees concerned son and a doctor's report based on a detailed log. It can happen fast, frighteningly fast." "Melanie, what do I do?" "You are going to go back upstairs, right now. You are going to take your smartphone. You are going to photograph every single page of that notebook, every page. Then you are going to photograph that business card and every single page of that guardianship petition. Make sure the pictures are clear, and then you are going to email them to me immediately. But he's coming home." "Which is why you have to do it now," she said. "We need that evidence. It's the only thing that proves their intent. Go, do it. Call me the second it's done." My legs felt like lead, but Melanie's urgency was a fire at my back. I unlocked the attic door again. The single bulb seemed to mock me. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking so violently I could barely unlock the screen. "Come on, Flora," I whispered to myself. "Be strong." I opened the camera app. I walked over to the folding table. I started with the petition. Page 1, snap. The flash was blinding in the dim light. Page 2, snap. Page 3, snap. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Every sound the house made, the hum of the refrigerator, a branch scraping the window, was Daniel. It was them, coming home early. I grabbed the notebook. I opened it to the first page. July 14th, snap. July 17th, snap. July 20th, snap. I forced my hands to be steady. I smoothed the pages. I focused the lens. This was my life. This was my sanity. Page by page, I was documenting the conspiracy to steal it. August 3rd, snap. August 10th, snap. I was halfway through the notebook, my thumb aching from holding the phone, my back screaming from leaning over the small table. September 5th, snap. September 12th, snap. Just a few more pages. I photographed the business card. Dr. Penelope Harding, snap. I got to the last entry. October 9th, F seemed to be talking to herself in the kitchen, arguing with someone who wasn't there. D notified. He agrees it's time. Snap. I closed the notebook. I stood there, panting in the dusty air. I had it. I had it all. I opened my email, attached the dozens of photos. It took an age for them to load. The progress bar crept across the screen. 80%, 90%, sent. A wave of relief so profound it made me dizzy washed over me. I sagged against the wall, and then I heard it. It wasn't the house settling. It wasn't a branch. It was the sound of a key in the front door, the slam of that door, and Daniel's voice bellowing my name. Mom, where are you? We're home. They were home, days early. My blood turned to ice. I was trapped in the attic, the spy's nest, with the evidence in my hand. Mom, Daniel's voice was closer. He was at the foot of the stairs. What the hell is going on? The police called me. They called me about Harriet. I shoved my phone deep into the pocket of my jeans. I scrambled to put the notebook and the petition back on the table, but my hands were clumsy. I knocked over the lantern. She's up there, I heard Juliana's sharp voice. I heard something. Daniel, she's in the attic. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. The attic door, which I hadn't relocked, was flung open. Daniel stood there, his face pale and furious, his ski jacket still on. Juliana was right behind him, her perfectly made-up face a mask of cold anger. What? What are you doing up here? Daniel panted, his eyes sweeping the small, squalid space. And then he saw it. His eyes locked on the folding table, on the notebook, on the petition I was still holding. No, he whispered. Juliana pushed past him. My God, she hissed, her eyes narrowing. She found them. She found everything. What did you do, Mom? Daniel's voice was low, dangerous. He took a step into the room. I found her, I stammered, holding the papers to my chest like a shield. I found this, your plan. You don't understand, he said, advancing on me. You were never supposed to see this. This was just a precaution. A precaution? I shrieked, finding my voice. A petition to have me committed? A book full of lies to prove I'm insane? You call this a precaution? She's hysterical, Juliana said, her voice bored. Daniel, just get the papers. Mom, give them to me, he said, holding out his hand. He was trying to sound reasonable, but his eyes were hard. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I am thinking more clearly than I have in years. I backed away, but I hit the slanted roof. I was cornered. You did this. You and her, that ghost. You conspired against me. We were trying to help you, he roared, his mask of concern finally dropping to reveal the rage beneath. You are a stubborn old woman who won't listen to reason. You're not safe here. You're not capable. You're not capable, Juliana echoed, stepping to his side. Someone has to make the hard decisions for you, Flora, and this proves it. You're paranoid. You're delusional. Look at this place. Give me the notebook, Mom. No, I said, my voice shaking. This is my proof. This is what I'll show the police, what I'll show my lawyer. Juliana laughed, a short, ugly sound. Your lawyer? You mean Melanie? Don't be ridiculous. This, she pointed to the notebook in my hand, is our proof. This is the evidence for Dr. Harding, evidence that you are unwell. Daniel lunged. It wasn't a gentle take. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers biting into my skin. I cried out, more in shock than in pain. Mom, stop it, just give them to me. No, get off me, Daniel. I twisted away, but he was too strong. He wrenched the guardianship petition from my grasp. The pages tore. Juliana was faster. She didn't go for me. She snatched the notebook from the table where I'd dropped it in the scuffle. Got it, she said, clutching it to her cashmere-covered chest. Daniel, you're hurting me, I cried, pulling my arm back. He let go and I stumbled, falling against the dusty mattress. He stood over me, his chest heaving, the torn petition in his hand. You don't understand what you're doing, he said, his voice cold, all the false warmth gone. We were trying to do this the easy way, the kind way, but you're fighting us. You're sick, Mom. You really are. This is evidence, Juliana said, tapping the notebook. This is what Dr. Harding needs to see, and your little episode up here just confirms it. Doesn't it, Daniel? Yeah, he said, stuffing the torn papers into his pocket. It does. They looked at me, lying on the filthy sleeping bag, a prisoner in my own home. They had the proof. They had the plan. As far as they were concerned, I was already beaten. We'll be staying, obviously, Juliana said, pulling her phone out. I'll cancel the rest of the trip. We need to manage this. Manage you. Get out, I whispered. What? Get out of my house. I pushed myself up. My phone was a hard, reassuring weight in my pocket. Get out, both of you, now. Daniel actually laughed. Mom, don't be ridiculous. This is our home too, and you're clearly not well. We're not going anywhere. You have 5 minutes, I said, walking past them, down the attic stairs. 5 minutes, or I call the police and have you removed for trespassing and assault. I didn't look back. I walked down to the kitchen, my legs shaking, but my mind crystal clear. They thought they had won. They thought they had the advantage. They had no idea I had already sent the copies. I didn't call the police, not then. Daniel and Juliana stormed out, shouting threats about lawyers and doctors and my unstable condition. But they left. They knew I had them on assault. For now. The next day, I had new locks installed. Every door, every window. I was drinking a cup of tea, the first I'd truly tasted in days, when the pounding started. It wasn't a knock. It was a fist. Someone was hammering on my new front door. I looked through the peephole. A man I didn't recognize. He was in his late 30s, haggard, with angry eyes and a 3-day stubble. He looked familiar. He pounded again, rattling the door in its frame. I opened it a crack, the new chain lock engaged. Can I help you? Are you Flora Paxton? He demanded. I am. Who are you? I'm Mason Milner, he spat, Harriet's son. My hand tightened on the door. Harriet's son. The boy I'd last seen at his father's funeral, looking lost. He didn't look lost anymore. He looked furious. What do you want? You! You're the one! He snarled, pointing a finger at me. You called the cops on my mother. You had her arrested. She had nowhere else to go, nowhere, and you threw her to the wolves. Mr. Milner, I said, my voice cold, your mother was trespassing. She's a fugitive who faked her own death. She did that to protect us, he yelled, his face reddening. From things you wouldn't understand, and she was safe here. She was fine. Daniel was helping her, and you ruined it. A piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Daniel, you've spoken to Daniel. Of course I've spoken to him. He's the one who told me she was arrested. He's worried sick. About her, about you. He said you've been having episodes. That you got confused and called the police. The audacity, the sheer cold-blooded nerve of my son. He was already spinning the narrative, painting me as the crazy old woman. "Mr. Milner," I said, and my voice was sharp as glass. "My son has been lying to you. He's been lying to everyone, including your mother." His angry tirade stuttered to a halt. What are you talking about?" "Daniel wasn't helping your mother. He was using her. He had her spying on me. He had her writing down a book of lies about me, fabricating evidence that I was losing my mind." Mason's face went blank. No, he said he was just checking on you, making sure you were safe." "He was," I said, "so he could have me committed." I unlatched the chain and opened the door. I had to see his face. "Your mother was a pawn in my son's plan to have me declared mentally incompetent so he could get power of attorney, sell this house, and put me in a home." Mason stared at me. He looked at my house. He looked back at my face, searching. He saw no episodes. He saw no confusion. He saw the truth. "Committed?" he whispered. The word sounded obscene. A home? A geriatric psychiatrist was all booked. A guardianship petition was all typed up. Your mother was his star witness, and now that she's been arrested, he's telling everyone I'm the crazy one for finding her. Mason's rage didn't disappear. It pivoted. The anger he had directed at me, at the police, at the world, it all focused like a burning hot lens on one point. "That manipulative bastard," he breathed. "He used her. She called me from jail. She was so scared. She said Daniel, he promised her. He promised her money, a new identity, a real one, enough to get to Canada, to start over. He promised he'd protect her. Instead, he set her up to take the fall," I said quietly. He told her you were a sweet old lady who was just fading, that you needed help but you were too proud. He made it sound noble, like she was protecting you." Mason ran his hands through his unkempt hair, his eyes wild. "He let her get arrested. He was going to let her take the entire fall and then pin the rest of it on you being senile." "Yes," I said. "That is exactly the plan." "No," Mason said, his voice dropping to a low growl. "He's not getting away with this." He looked at me, and I no longer saw a threat. I saw an ally, a very angry, very motivated ally. You have a lawyer?" he asked. "Melanie Weston. She's the best." "Good," he said, "because I know things Harriet told me, things I overheard. You want to know why Daniel is so desperate? Why he'd do this to his own mother?" My heart hammered. "Yes, I do." "He's broke," Mason said, his voice laced with contempt. "Broke, bankrupt. I overheard him and Juliana talking back in August. I came by to see my mom, to bring her some things. Daniel was there. They were in the kitchen and I was in the hall. They didn't know I was there." He was pacing my front porch now, a caged animal. They were screaming at each other. Juliana was crying about credit cards, business loans that went bad. They'd remortgaged their condo. They were about to lose everything. The pieces I'd half seen now made a terrible, complete picture. And Juliana, she said, "It's all sitting right here. Your mother is sitting on a gold mine. This house, her savings, it's not fair." And Daniel, he said, "I know, I'm working on it. The Harriet plan is working. Just give me time." I had to sit down. I gripped the porch railing. He was planning this all along. "It gets worse," Mason said, his face dark. "It wasn't just a home. They had a name, a facility, Serenity Meadows." Juliana had brochures. I don't understand." "It's a dump, Mrs. Paxton, a cheap, state-funded dump, the kind of place people go when their families want them to disappear. It's not a nice retirement community. It's the end of the line. They were going to put you there, bleed your accounts dry, paying for your care, and then sell this house and live off the profits. A cold, sick dread filled me. This was a level of evil I couldn't comprehend. And Harriet, Mason's voice broke. She told me Juliana was researching medications, drugs to give you, things that cause confusion, memory loss, things that look like dementia, but aren't. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a shared, horrified understanding. They weren't just documenting your decline, Mrs. Paxton. They were going to create it. The next morning, Melanie and I were ready. We sat in my living room, a fortress of legal documents spread across the coffee table. Melanie had a copy of the restraining order, her paralegal's witness statement, and the digital files I'd sent. She'd also spent the night digging. "He's not just bankrupt, Flora," she said, sipping her coffee. "He's in deep. 2 bad real estate ventures. Looks like he borrowed from his company's pension fund. He's not just desperate. He's a cornered rat." At 10 a.m., exactly as Melanie had predicted, they arrived. But this time they weren't alone. Daniel and Juliana, dressed in their sober, concerned best, walked up the path. Behind them was a uniformed police officer, the same one from the other day, Officer Ramirez. "Oh, good," Melanie whispered, a small, tight smile on her face. "He brought a witness." I opened the door before they could knock. "Mom," Daniel said, his face a perfect mask of sad, put-upon concern. "Officer Ramirez, thank you for coming. As you can see, the door is different. She's locked us out." "Flora, honey," Juliana said, stepping forward, her eyes brimming with fake tears. We're just so worried. After your episode in the attic. And now you're not answering your phone." "Mrs. Paxton," Officer Ramirez said, his hand on his belt. He looked uncomfortable. "Your son and daughter-in-law have requested a wellness check. They say you've been acting erratically. That you're confused. They're concerned you may be a danger to yourself. They also," Juliana added, "say you've stolen some private medical papers, that you're paranoid." "Officer," Daniel said, "we just want to talk to her. To make sure she's okay, and retrieve our documents." The ambush was set. They were here with a cop to paint me as the crazy, paranoid old woman who'd stolen their evidence. I smiled. "Of course, please come in. All of you. My lawyer, Melanie Weston, is here. I'm sure she can clear all this up." The look on Daniel's face as Melanie Weston stood up from the sofa. It was, quite possibly, the most satisfying moment of my life. "Daniel, Juliana, what a surprise," Melanie said, her voice like chipped ice. "Officer Ramirez, thank you for being here. We were just about to file a report." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Melanie? What are you doing here?" "Mom, what is this?" "This," I said, "is what you'd call facing reality, Daniel. You came for your private papers? The ones you mean to show Dr. Harding?" "Yes," Juliana said, recovering quickly, "our private documentation of her condition, which she stole." "You mean this documentation?" Melanie said. She didn't hand him papers. She tapped her laptop, which was connected to the TV. The screen flared to life, and there, in high definition, was page 1 of Harriet's notebook. "What? How?" Daniel stammered. Melanie clicked. Page 2, page 3. "I have digital copies of all 74 pages, Daniel. Clear, time-stamped, and already filed with the court." Click. The screen changed. The guardianship petition. Click. The business card for Dr. Harding. "I spoke to Dr. Harding's office this morning," Melanie said, her voice conversational. "They confirmed an urgent appointment was made by you, Daniel, for your ailing mother. They were very interested to hear that your mother had no knowledge of this appointment and that the evidence you planned to provide was fabricated by a known fugitive." Daniel's face was ashen. Juliana was vibrating with rage. This This is an invasion of privacy, Juliana hissed. Those are our personal notes. Are they? Melanie said. Because they look like a conspiracy to commit elder abuse and fraud. Officer, what I'm showing you is a premeditated plot to have a perfectly competent woman stripped of her rights and assets by her bankrupt son. Bankrupt? Ramirez said, his hand moving from his belt to his notepad. Oh, yes, Melanie said. We have the bankruptcy filings. We also, she held up a sheaf of papers, have a sworn affidavit from Mason Milner, Harriet's son. At the name Mason, Daniel actually recoiled. It details your arrangement with Harriet, Daniel. The promises of money, the new identity, and... Oh, yes, it details your conversation with Juliana about Serenity Meadows and the plan to medicate your mother into a state of confusion. Officer Ramirez looked at Daniel. His expression was no longer uncomfortable. It was cold. Mr. Paxton, is this true? This is slander, Daniel blustered. He's a liar. He's the son of a criminal. And you, I said, my voice ringing out in the quiet room, are a monster. You were going to drug me. Officer, Melanie said, we're not pressing criminal charges, yet. We're giving Daniel and Juliana a choice. She walked over and handed the restraining order to Officer Ramirez. This is a temporary restraining order, to be served immediately. They are to stay 500 feet away from Mrs. Paxton and this property. But we are also offering this. She slid a new document across the table. This is a legal agreement. Daniel gives up his power of attorney, effective immediately. He and Juliana will have no contact with Flora ever again. They will never contest her will or her medical decisions. In exchange, Mrs. Paxton will not pursue criminal charges for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted assault. You can't do this, Daniel whispered. You have 2 minutes to sign, Melanie said. Or Officer Ramirez here can take your statement downtown. I'm sure the Financial Crimes Unit would be fascinated by your pension fund. Juliana grabbed the pen. Sign it, Daniel. Just sign it. Daniel's hand was shaking so badly he could barely write his name. He signed. Juliana signed. Officer, Melanie said, if you would be so kind as to escort Mr. and Mrs. Paxton from the property and serve them with this. She handed the signed restraining order to Ramirez. He looked at it, looked at Daniel, and nodded. Mr. Paxton, ma'am, it's time for you to go. Mom, Daniel said, his voice pleading. Mom, please. It wasn't... I was trying to... I love you. No, you don't, I said, and the certainty of it gave me no pain, only peace. You don't love me. You love what I have, and you will never, ever get it. Flora, Juliana started, her eyes glittering with hate. Get out, I said. Get out of my house. I watched from the window as Officer Ramirez walked them to their car. He handed Daniel the papers. He said something that made Juliana flinch, and then he waited, hand on his hip, until their polished black SUV pulled away, for the last time. When I turned around, Melanie was smiling. Well, she said, that was bracing. I felt light. The weight of the house, of my family, of the lies. It was all gone. What now? I asked. Now, Melanie said, you live your life, and I'd advise changing your will. I want to change my will, I said, sitting in Melanie's office the next day. Flora, you don't have to be rash. I have never been less rash in my life, I said. Daniel, I want him to get $1, $1 single dollar. So he knows for the record that I did not forget him. I actively disinherited him. I can do that, Melanie said, a small smile playing on her lips. And everything else, the house, my savings, my investments, I want it all to go to the county women's shelter, the one that helps women and children escaping men like my son. That, Melanie said, is a powerful move, Flora. I'll have the papers drawn up by end of day." I signed them. My hand was steady. My next call was to a realtor, the best one in town. "I want to sell," I said. 412 Willow Creek Drive, as is, fast." The for sale sign went up that afternoon. The house, the asset they had coveted, the gold mine I was sitting on, was a whirlwind. It was priced to sell, and it did. In 3 days, the buyers were a young couple, a doctor and a teacher with 2 toddlers and another on the way. They fell in love with the backyard. They gushed about the kitchen. They didn't see a burden. They saw a future. I signed the closing papers, and the number that appeared in my bank account was staggering. It wasn't a prison. It was a liberation. I bought a townhouse, a small, bright, brand new unit in a community for active adults. It had 2 bedrooms, a small, sunny patio for my garden boxes, and a community center with a pool. It was not Serenity Meadows. It was not a home. It was my home. The day I moved, Miranda Greaves came to help. She had refused to take my money for the last cleaning. Instead, she brought her husband and her son, and they moved my boxes for 3 hours. "Mrs. Paxton, are you sure?" she asked as we unwrapped my good dishes. "This place, it's so different." "It's perfect, Miranda," I said, "and please call me Flora." I joined a gardening club. I joined a book club. I took a watercolor painting class. I met my neighbor, Rebecca, a 70-year-old widow with a wicked laugh and a convertible, who taught me how to play poker. My life, which had been shrinking, suddenly, wonderfully, expanded. 6 months later, I threw a dinner party. It was on the anniversary of the day Miranda found Harriet. My patio was filled with white lights. The table was crowded. Melanie was there, arguing with Rebecca about a recent Supreme Court ruling. Miranda and her husband were there, laughing as they showed pictures of their granddaughter. My friends from the book club were there, drinking wine and talking too loudly. I brought out the lasagna, and as I set it on the table, I looked around. I was surrounded by people. People who valued me. People who didn't see me as a burden or a problem or a piggy bank. People who saw me. Daniel had been right about one thing. I was too old to keep living the way I had been. I was too old to waste another minute on relationships built on obligation and manipulation. I was too old to let fear define my choices. But I was not too old to start over. I realized, exactly the right age to finally, truly live for myself. And I had earned every single, beautiful, just minute of it. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.